What's going on, A to Z Sports? Sam Phelan here with you for Titans at 2 here on a Monday afternoon, recapping a little bit of what Brian Callahan had to say in his press conference with the media that, went on just a few hours ago over at St. Thomas Sports Park. And my takeaway after watching the Titans play in Los Angeles against the Chargers and then listening to what Brian Callahan had to say and listening to my own brain and opinions is that Titans quarterback Will Levis deserves a little bit more credit for his performance in that game, albeit a loss for the Titans. I'm going to go over some reasons why. Brian Callahan is going to talk about some of the pluses and pros he saw from Will Levis in the game, and then some of the drawbacks or concerns and just how fixable they are. Before we get into it, a reminder that Titans at 2 is brought to you by the Lipscomb Sport Analytics program. Lipscomb Sport Analytics, where data meets the game, where you can analyze, strategize, and revolutionize and turn your passion into profession. I'm a Lipscomb graduate myself. I turned my passion for sports into a profession in sports thanks to the Lipscomb faculty and connections they have in the Nashville area. So if you want to get off the sidelines and into the action, get with Lipscomb Sports Analytics program, where you'll learn to make the calls that count and go beyond the box score. At Lipscomb, they're not just watching the game, they're changing how it's played through innovative sport analytics. All right, let's talk about Will Levis. It's kind of a polarizing topic for Titans fans right now because I was here on the A to Z Sports pregame, halftime, and postgame show talking with Titans fans, me and Easton Freeze, about what we thought of Will Levis's return to the starting lineup. He comes back after missing multiple games with a shoulder injury and finally healthy. And I think he looked pretty good. Will Levis finishes the day, final stat line 18 for 23 passing, 175 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, added over 40 yards, 41 yards on the ground on 5 carries, did not turn the ball over for the first time all year. And yet, a lot of Titans fans, I feel like, came away from this game very down, disappointed, and negative about Will Levis. I was getting ripped on the postgame show. People saying, Sam, Will Levis was trash. Look at all these sacks that he was responsible for. Well, he was sacked 7 times. That is the reality. He was sacked more frequently than Mason Rudolph was when Mason Rudolph was the quarterback. That is also a fact. There's no denying it. And there's no denying the idea that Will Levis could improve his pocket presence. That is a weakness of his right now. But I think overall, Will Levis gave you almost everything you could have asked for him in that football game. And I don't think many of those sacks were even on him. Brian Callahan said about 2 of them he would attribute to Levis, but then today kind of walked it back a little bit and said, you know what? I don't really believe in attributing sacks to one player. It's an offensive issue, not just a Will issue. But at the end of the day, I believe that where Will Levis is right now is a really good spot for him to be in compared to where he was just a week ago. And if you want to feel like he needs to get better and shouldn't take as many sacks, I think that's a fair criticism. I think Will Levis would admit that that is a fair criticism. But the biggest question is, can it improve over time? That's a question Brian Callahan answered in his press conference earlier today.
Will can improve, that can be fixed, or is that something that the line is gonna have to just protect longer because he's a guy that needs more time to get the ball down the
I
field?
think it's certainly fixable. I think there's a couple of them for sure that you point out that there's one sack in particular is it's a third and I think it was third and 14 or 15, and we run a pretty standard sail concept and the underneath throw is available, and the deeper throw is not, and it's just at that point in the game and at third and 14 or 15, take the completion, and what could happen there is one, you break a tackle and you get a first down. 2, we get a good solid gain, and now we're in 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, and we can go for it in that spot, which we would like to do, particularly when the game score was what it was. And then the third one is that you don't take a hit, and it's one less hit on your body and one less hit for the line that has to absorb. And that was one that definitely should have just get the ball out of your hand. 3rd and 15. It's difficult as hell to convert those and take those yards and see what happens, as opposed to trying to force a ball down the field or hold on to it to wait and see. You just knew you're not going to go very well at the end of the day. So, yeah, those are things that you can point out, and we will. Things where we can get better and play more efficiently and help ourselves get the ball out of our hands. So it's hopefully one less sack on the ledger for the game.
Probably similar question, but I wonder.
So there's a lot here, but Callahan says fixable for sure, identifiable and fixable. I don't view this Will Levis sack issue really all that different than his turnover issue, outside of the fact that the sack thing is better. Like it's less of a detriment to you. Similar to how Will Levis would have to look up and say, okay, well, it's third down and 14, and I'm about to get sacked, and we are in a position to kick a field goal right now. And he needs to be able to put that ball away and go down, take the sack, kick the field goal. He also needs to know when to not extend the play. What Brian Callahan is talking about here is Will Levis's tendency to wait and see. He likes to hang on to the football, waiting for something deep down the field to develop to try and hit explosive plays. One thing Callahan talked about is this idea that Mason Rudolph's style of play is going to get the ball out quicker, but he's also going to hit less explosive plays because he doesn't often wait to see what's going to develop down the field. There is a benefit to holding on to the ball and waiting and letting a play develop. But if you're Will Levis, you just have to learn when is the time to do that, when is not the time to do that, and when your mental clock needs to be going off. But it is something I think the Titans can fix over time. The real way to get your body ready to make those split-second decisions in different scenarios is by playing football and being in the scenarios. But this was overall, I felt like a very strong improvement. And if you ask me, or if you ask Brian Callahan, like I did, whether he would rather have Will Levis like this, where he maybe takes one or two sacks too many, or Will Levis that's a little bit reckless with the ball and getting it out really quick, this is a version that's way more efficient, way more productive, and can actually function within the Titans offense.
Probably an explosive play. But again, it's just you don't know what he's seeing at field level and how it feels when he comes out.
Do you see that as a step in the right direction, or is that because early in the season, right? Narratively, he's being reckless with the ball, he's putting the ball in harm's way, and in this game he doesn't do that, but maybe he's not pulling the trigger fast enough. Is that a different problem, or is that
different?
A step in the right
it's
direction?
different. I mean, it's kind of a play-by-play thing because there's a couple plays that he pulled the trigger on that were tight window throws that were really, really nice throws, and that's the throws you got to make sometimes to play in the NFL, to play quarterback, and that part was encouraging. So I think I think that play isn't necessarily an indicator of the whole picture, but I do think he did a really nice job in the game of improving that aspect. He was smart with the ball, was aggressive when he needed to be, and that's one where you'd like to be aggressive in that situation, potentially to hit Josh, but you're not going to hit every one of them either, and so that part is okay. But I did see progress, and there's a lot of things I felt positive about coming out of that game with Will and where he was at. And again, not turning the ball over, not putting it in harm's way, being smart, running, sliding, all of those things were improvements.
Different problems, like you said, but maybe perhaps difficult to compare. But just from your perspective, would you rather have Will how he was earlier, where you're having to tell him, like, don't risk it there, that's not the situation, or the Will that was more efficient and then missed a couple of, like, is that a positive change?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna excuse me. You're gonna miss throws and you're gonna miss opportunities, and that's just how it goes. You're not gonna hit every one of them. There's gonna be guys that come open that your feet get taken away, your timing's off, and you got to move on. And it's like, oh, if we just would have hit that. But what's happening in the pocket, or how the coverage dictates, or what the quarterback sees, is not always going to be after the fact. It looks maybe more open than it was to him in the moment. So those aren't things that I spend too much time on. You just try to point it out and correct it and move on if there's something that can be corrected. But I saw growth in Will's play in this game. I really did. There was improvement. There's part of playing quarterback that, for the most part, can be pretty boring, and that's probably 80% of playing quarterback is doing the normal, mundane, ordinary things consistently well. And then there's a time and a place where your talent has to take over, and that's a big throw, a touchdown, for example. 2 or 3 of those throws, you saw Will's talent, his ability to fit the ball in a tight window accurately, taking off and running, using his feet, using his legs. Those things were all really good to see, and I feel like that's an improvement from where we were to where we are now. And we got another stiff challenge this week against the Vikings for him to show even more of that. And there's that's just the way it is. There's going to be give and take moments that are good, and there's going to be some that you got to keep coaching. And but I was pleased with what he showed in that game overall.
You've tried a lot of.
Wow. So yeah, 3 minutes there, but really, really good stuff from Brian Callahan. Says he was overall really pleased with what Will Levis showed. And I find this very important because I have an issue kind of with the narrative surrounding Will Levis right now, because I don't feel like he gets enough credit for all of the improvement that he showed and all of the good that he did. He did so much more good than bad. He didn't play a perfect game at quarterback, but very few quarterbacks in the league do. I don't think the standard for Will Levis in 2024 was ever to be a top 5 QB in the league. I don't think the standard for most quarterbacks, period, is to be a top 5 QB in the league. So I think if you would have asked me what I hoped to see from Will Levis in his return to play and what I'm hoping to see from Will Levis over the back half of the stretch of the 2024 season, now that he is the starter and healthy, it's a guy who makes better decisions, who protects the football, who is, accurate and efficient. A guy who puts your team in a position to score points. Another note from the game that I made last night in the postgame show that Brian Callahan brought up, they were in a position to score points on half of their drives. They had 8 possessions, 2 touchdowns, a field goal, and then 1 missed field goal. But Will Levis had them in a position to score half of the time they touched the football. That's a good place to be. If you would have told me that Will Levis was putting up 18 for 23 for 175, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers on 8 possessions, that he would add 41 yards on the ground, that like Brian Callahan said, when he uses his legs was like well-timed, well thought out, effective, protecting the ball, protecting himself, getting down. Those are all of the signs of growth that are really, really encouraging. And I think we need to celebrate that a little bit more. I know we're annoyed at the fact that it was a 27-17 loss. I think that had more to do with the defense than it did with Will Levis. Genuinely. And I just want to make sure we are being fair when giving him his credit for the things that he does very well, instead of coming out of each one of these games looking for every reason why Will Levis stinks. I do think that there is some of that going around. All of the excitement about potentially drafting a quarterback, all of the stink that existed when Will Levis was hurt, trying to play injured in this offense. I think all of that has sort of soured people to now we're looking for any reason to blame Will. But what about when Will does some stuff very, very well? Because I don't believe the jury is I believe the jury's still out. I don't believe the book is closed on Will Levis's Titans story. So I'll be the only one, maybe the first one of many, but I'll be one to say it. I think he was good against the Chargers. I'm encouraged with how he looked. I think Brian Callahan is too, and Titans fans need to give him a little bit more credit where it's due. That's all I got for you today. I'll be back on A to Z Sports Primetime tonight. So if you're watching this on Monday, come check me out Monday night for A to Z Primetime. And then, keep it locked on A to Z for all your Titans content throughout the 2024 NFL season. Till next time, tighten up. We'll see you later.